Greetings, everyone. This is Eric Stewart from the Bad Rhino Local Podcast, and today I'm joined with Jim Stewart, who's the founder of Your Local Network. So how you doing, Jim?
I'm doing good today.
Awesome, man. It's great to have you. And it's funny because we meet at a lot of these different chamber events in Exton and Westchester, and it's cool to kind of sit down with you and talk to you more about your company and what you guys got going on and kind of hear the whole story about like how it was developed, and we'll kind of go into the different services you offer too. But Jim, let's start with just telling our listeners more about what you guys do at Your Local Network.
Yeah, sure. Your Local Network was founded in 2018. Essentially, we offer local advertising, digital marketing services. There's a bunch of us out there that do various digital marketing services. But we do have one unique service that kind of sets us apart from what everybody else is doing, and that's indoor digital billboards. That essentially is TV screens that we install in local high traffic businesces that, want to help other local businesses. So, the diners, the gyms, the hardware stores, any place that sees high traffic, high dwell time. We're just running video advertisements for, all those other businesses in the community, the realtors, the insurance agents, the electricians, plumbers, et cetera. So it just gives them a great platform to just get their brand out there for brand awareness, which seems to be one of the most forgotten things out there when it comes to marketing a business.
Absolutely. It's always, it goes back to the age-old adage whenever I'm on like a sales call, and I'm sure you get the same thing. It's like, what's going to be my ROI on this thing?
Yes.
And people don't realize when they're starting up a brand, it's good to get out there first before you start looking at the fine details of it, of what's the actual return on investment, right?
Oh, I know. That's why I try to tell people. I'm like, look, if they don't know you exist, you put something in front of them, they're not going to react to it.
Right. Especially nowadays with everyone kind of looking at multiple different platforms, whether it's Google, social media, or even like what you have going on with the digital billboards. But Jim, we're going to get into the digital billboards and a bunch of other stuff too that I kind of have listed out here. But I always like talking to people and figuring out kind of how they got to where they are today, right? Because just looking at your background, I'm sure you got kind of an interesting story about how you ended up starting this company. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was we'll call it a long journey. College, I was a communications marketing major, so kind of put my focus more towards the radio and television. Spent some time trying to crack into that field and kind of got sidetracked a few times. Ended up in finance for quite a few years. After I figured out that really wasn't where I wanted to be in life. Ended up with a startup company called Newer Tickets, which was an event ticketing company, which I was, I think, employee number 4 or 5 on. In 11 years, we built it up to the second largest event ticketing company in the country that no one ever heard of because we private labeled in every market that we were in. They sold us. And, being high-paid middle management, out the door I went. After that, took a little time off, be a stay-at-home dad. After a few years of that, just was going a little stir-crazy, wanted to get back in and doing something, and realized that the corporate America, after being burned a few times there, that was not the direction I wanted to go to. So just researched opportunities, and, in 2018, that's when I launched Your Local Network.
It's just funny because like when I talk to people that start their own business, it's kind of that same story of like they're in a corporate environment and they're kind of quote unquote working for the man, right? And they kind of get either bogged down from it or they have like a couple of bad days of bad months of work. And then it's like, okay, you know what? I have the tools to really start something myself. And it's kind of what it sounds like what happened to you.
Yeah, and that's part of it. It's like, at the end of the day, I'm the only person I got to answer to. And, so many times in my career throughout corporate America was you're answering to someone that isn't qualified to be answered to. They're like, you get people in positions that they don't belong in, that they don't deserve to be in, and because of politics. And, that can wear you down. That wears a lot of people just to the point where they're like, all right, I'm out. No more corporate America for me.
Yeah, because you end up biting your lip half the time, right? And you can't say anything.
Exactly.
But Jim, moving on to the billboards that you mentioned here, because it's one of those things that, if anyone who's listening to this lives in the borough or walks into, Buddy's Burgers and they see the TVs up on the screen, they probably are familiar with your logo to the point where it's like, oh, that guy, they might have clicked on this podcast and be like, oh, I've seen that logo around town before, right?
Right.
So your TVs are kind of all over the place. How many different locations are you guys in like Westchester and Exton?
So I got 10 in Westchester, I think 8 in Exton, 4 in Malvern, 3 in Downingtown, and 1 in Chester Springs, I think. I don't know. I got 25 screens now. I just added a few recently in Malvern, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
Bounce pickleball, taking advantage of the latest craze out there.
Yeah.
So we just put up a screen in there last week.
Business owners and marketing professionals in the Philly area, Bad Rhino takes the overwhelm out of digital marketing. With tailored digital marketing services, from social media management to SEO and PPC advertising, our expert team navigates the complexities of the digital ad space for your business. Let Bad Rhino lead you to success. Visit badrhinoinc.com and let's take your business to new heights. Bad Rhino, we do digital marketing so you don't have to.
For your TVs, what companies mostly like advertise on there?
You're primarily looking at B2C, people that are looking to connect with the local population, essentially. So, the restaurants, the gyms, they're all seeing patronage of people, within a 5-mile radius. So it tends to be, we're getting a lot of service area, businesses. So we're getting the electrician, the HVAC, the plumber, and then also several insurance agents, realtor. But essentially, it's any business is really looking to grab the attention of the local market.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then if I owned a business, say a Buddy's Burgers or another restaurant or any of these places that you have the TVs in, what would be like the process of like, this might be something I want to do? Would they just like reach out on your website and like get in contact with you? And how long does it normally take to kind of get the whole thing kind of set up?
Just reach out. My phone number, email, everything's on the website. Getting set up, it all depends on the business that's looking to be a host. I can pretty much have everything set up in about a week, and that includes the ads and everything else. But it depends on deliverables, and that world where you're constantly waiting on the client to like, you going to send me that stuff today?
No, but
I'll get it to you by the end of the day. 2 days later, you going to send me that stuff today?
I have talked to a few people in Exton and Westchester, and they say your process that you have for the TVs and in like place billboards are it's really smooth. So anyone like interested in checking it out, I've heard from multiple sources, Jim does a good job of just making the process as smooth as possible. So definitely check that link out in the description if you want to check him out for that. But on top of that, you also do a bunch of other stuff too in digital marketing, like Google Business Profile, geofencing, social media, and website design.
Yep. We kind of, tackle some key areas to help people out. The biggest one, and I think most of where I have the most clients would be the Google Business Profile Management. Just because simply, I spend a lot of my time educating people on local SEO.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the buzzword SEO. No one knows what it is. So you're constantly trying to educate people. Like, this is what it means. This is what it is. But do you understand what local SEO is? And it's like, well, no. Okay. Well, here's what your Google Business Profile does for you when a search turns local. Mm-hmm. And then Google's training us all to search local because as soon as you type something in that search bar, what do you see?
The maps. It's right
Near
up there.
me, in Westchester, in Exton. So Google is continually trying to get us to search local so that everything is geared towards its product. So that's where the Google Business Profile becomes so important because that's the first thing it's going to look at on a local search.
Absolutely.
So, you ask someone, do you have a business profile? Yeah, I set one up when I started my business 8 years ago. Great. That's doing absolutely nothing for you right now.
Yeah, I've we could go on a whole another podcast and talk about Google Business Profile because that's something I dove into and can talk, my head off about it, and I know you can kind of talk your head off about it. But I would say probably the biggest question I get asked when I'm talking to companies that don't have a commercial place of business, that they don't have an address connected to their Google Business Profile, and they're kind of just running it as a service-based business. or a service area business. So what would be like your tips on a company in that specific position? Would you kind of advise them to use a residential address, or would you just kind of draw a map around where they serve?
Typically, we'll draw a map around where they serve. Kind of best practices we've come across is, keep it within an hour and a half to 2 hour drive from that central location. And then just kind of focus in on those areas inside, that circle. Once you get out too far, then, Google starts questioning whether you're an actual local business or not.
Right.
And that's what we want to try to avoid.
For sure. Because really, like, what Google Business Profile is really made for is local people meeting local service-based businesses or other businesses in the area. And I think that gets lost a lot, too, when you start looking at companies, because they want to get the most reach as possible, right? It's like an HVAC company that does work. I do work, this half of Pennsylvania. It's like, okay, let's start by dialing that down and really focusing on where you get the best, your most clients or the best bang for the buck. Focus there, and then we can kind of explore that through a multitude of different ways, whether it's paid ads, citations, anything, right? So I think just starting out locally is always the best tip there. And thanks for hitting on that point for the service-based business, because I get that all the time. You wanted it down in a podcast episode for sure. For sure. So along with running your company, right, and talking to all these people, sales calls, the execution part of it too, you also make time for your kids as well, right? You have 2 kids who are in sports, and as, a 24-year-old, I've seen my dad go through it, playing for like college baseball and traveling around. He was hands-on with the actual travel down to Florida, whether it was tournaments, to a bunch of these other places, right? And I'm sure you're kind of experiencing the same thing. So how do you balance the time between work life, and how have you kind of seen the best practices there?
The balancing is probably the hardest part, and that means, I'm cutting out at 3 p.m. one day to make sure I make the soccer game at the middle school, and that means I'm working, 9 o'clock at night while I'm watching the Phillies game. I'm, trying to do, multitasking there, but it's just planning. It's just Sunday, I'm looking at my schedule for the week, going, okay, I got to have this kid here at this time, this kid here at this time. There's a game here, a game there. All right, there's a networking event over here that day. There's a networking event there. Maybe I can call a parent to get this kid to there. And, so it is a real balancing act where I'm constantly I got a plan. I have to have a plan in place by, Sunday night, Monday morning at the latest, just to make sure that I can do what I need to do. 1, to be there to support my kids, and then 2, to make sure that my business is running effectively.
Absolutely. I don't think that gets talked enough too, especially like coming from like a background in college, like going to Temple and kind of studying there. They don't tell you these things when you're at Temple, right? You might have to work on a Saturday or Sunday to get a job done in order to be ready for the next week coming up, to make free time with your kids or free time with other stuff you want to do, right? So I think it's really important to kind of hit on that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I take pride in the fact that I can be there. And that's one of the reasons I love being my own boss, is that I can be there at 3 p.m. on the sidelines during the week for that middle school game and stuff. So, working a 9 to 5 office job, I would be missing out on all these experiences.
Right. Definitely. Well, Jim, it only seems fitting that I shout out Westchester Chamber of Commerce and Exton Chamber of Commerce, being that's where we met. So tell me a little bit about the community that they've kind of built up in both those different chambers, and what's your experience been like so far there?
I absolutely love the chambers. They're a big part of, my business, essentially. The events they have, the community within the business community that they've created, where you just have these other business owners that you can lean on, that you can ask questions to, that, you can confide in, because pretty much you're going to find someone that's run into every problem or, road bump that you may be experiencing. And to be able to have a community like that to reach out to as support is just absolutely fantastic. The Exton Chamber especially, that's I spent a lot of time with that one to the point where I am an ambassador for that chamber, and I am on the board of directors. So, and I can tell you, chambers work. If you're a business out there in the community and you have not checked out any of the local chambers yet, I strongly advise you to. Like I said, they're great business communities that can help support and grow your business if you show up. And that's the key. Yeah, anybody can join a chamber, but if you show up and actually do the stuff that they offer, it's very effective and it works.
So, Jim, another question I have to ask you, because you did hit on it there. You're an ambassador for Exton. So what does that kind of all entail? What do you guys do?
An ambassador is just someone that's going to be there to help support the chamber, to promote the chamber at events. You want to make sure that everybody's, enjoying themselves. You see a wallflower that's just standing off by themselves. You go trying to help get them involved in what we have going on at that event. It's just basically being there for the membership and, to help support them and help them realize, what the chamber has to offer.
Gotcha. You need people like that, because it is kind of intimidating walking into that room for the first time and you see 50 plus people and you're like, oh, who do I go to first? You kind of get overwhelmed a little bit. So having a guy like Jim who walks up to you, who's just, a friendly face, friendly personality, and introduce you to a couple people, it goes a long way.
Yeah, that it does.
For sure. So, Jim, again, I appreciate the time. Thanks for jumping on this podcast. I'm going to give you kind of roll out the red carpet here and let you shout out where people can check out your local network, where people can find your social medias at, where people can check out your website and get in contact with you.
Sure. So my website's yourlocalnetwork.net. I'm all over Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me in the directories of the Exton Chamber, the Westchester Chamber, Chester County Chamber of Business and Industry. So it's not hard to find me if you're looking.
You'll find them. You'll find them for sure. Cool, Jim. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.